Hello and welcome to the Bliss Career Podcast, a podcast where we talk about everything career. I am your host, Dan Solomon, and in this podcast, I am bringing you interviews with people just like you, people who were once in your shoes. I'm also going to be talking with HR managers as well as people who are experts in their various fields. We have a lot of stuff to unpack today, so please sit tight and relax, and let's get to it then. Hello, George. It's really great to have you here today. So I came across a profile when you wrote about, I think when you got the job, and you said in the first line, I finally got a yes. To be frank, that really caught my attention because at the end, it really doesn't matter how many companies you apply to or how many companies do actually give you an offer. You can get 10, 20, 30 offers. It really doesn't matter. What really matters is finding that one company that tells you yes, because you would only be able to work for one company. That line really caught my attention. And I was like, okay, I need to reach out to this guy and bring him on my podcast, because I think there's a lot of stuff I can learn from him. And also maybe there's a lot of stuff you can also tell to other people out there who were in similar situations, are in similar situation. For example, what did you do differently? How did you stay motivated? Because that is very important, right? Because you could actually lose motivation in the overall process. How do you stay motivated? What helps you to keep on going? All this important stuff that nobody talks about. So I was like, let me bring him on. And thanks again for taking your time to accept this invite, and really appreciate taking this few minutes to talk about it. Really looking forward to it. And I would say, let's just get to it. As a start, I would just give us a brief introduction about yourself, who you are, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. I'm happy to be here as well. I mean, when I got the call from you to come on, I was more than happy to share my experience because, I mean, going through what I was going through at that point in time, I thought I was alone and I didn't have a lot of people to actually reach out to. But then I later on, I've got some people who were able to support me. So, I mean, if I get the chance to give back, I'm more than happy to do that at any other time. So, and regarding the post that you talked about, I mean, I actually had conflicts when I wanted to post it because I'm not the kind of person who likes to be out there, always posting something for people to, see that. So I was conflicted in writing it, but then I realized that it was also important because I knew people were going through that particular stage that I went through. And I mean, since I posted that call, I've had calls with almost about 50 people.
Wow.
Yeah, which is crazy. Not only Germany, I was surprised. People from all over the world who were just wanting some advice and all these stuff. So, more than happy to share, as I said. So a little bit about myself, as you said. My name is George. I'm originally from Ghana. I studied mechanical engineering in my bachelor's degree, and after the bachelor's degree, I had an opportunity to work for Caterpillar as a national service personnel, which is something sort of like a 1 year poorly paid internship, I'll call it.
Okay.
that you do after you're graduating from a Ghanaian university. So It's compulsory for everybody to do that. So after doing that, I actually got an offer to stay with the company. But then I realized that was naturally the direction I wanted to go because, I mean, during the internship, during the national service time, that 1 year period, I had an opportunity to work on the field as a service engineer. And I also had an opportunity to work in the office and support some strategy or project management activities. And I realized, I mean, I prefer the other side, the managerial part of the job, as compared to the actual technical side. So when the time came for me to, after that period, I was being offered a job to stay, but then I realized that in the long run, that wasn't something I was going to be happy with. So at the same time, I applied to a master's degree in Germany, and I got an offer to come and study. So I left that offer and I came here to study. I studied industrial management. The specialization was in innovation and business expansion. So during that time, So and the goal of the course was to sort of train young engineers to have some business knowledge and sort of be able to take on the challenges due to the disruption that digitalization is causing in our society today. So that was really, really appealing to me because it's required you to have some technical background and also build on that with some managerial knowledge. So this really appealed to me. So then in my third semester, I got an opportunity to do an internship, product marketing internship with Merck, a pharmaceutical company in the Hessen area, Darmstadt, to be
Yeah.
specific. Yeah. So okay. So that was when also, so as I said, coming from a purely engineering background, that was the first time I had an opportunity and exposure to work in marketing. So which was really, really transformational, I believe, in my journey because I had an opportunity to work on some digital marketing projects, some classical project management for the team, and also work on certain other maybe some branding or some strategy projects. So which was really, really interesting. And so, yeah, that is where I am now. I'm done with school, and then I went through the process during the pandemic. As I said, I got a job currently with Hugo Boss as a performance marketing manager, starting in a couple of weeks. Yeah, so that's a little bit about myself.
Ah, cool. Awesome. And congrats on your job, right? Really, really exciting prospect
Thank you
going
very much.
forward. Yeah, yeah. It's always good. Now you can relax a bit and enjoy Christmas, right?
I mean, that was one of the, I mean, for everything I try, maybe we'll talk about it later on in the conversation, because that was one of my target, because I was like, hey, December, a lot of people are going to be going on leave. I mean, recruiting is not going to be so active. So, bro, George, you have to get a job by December. So that was one of my key targets. So I was happy that I
Okay.
was able to get a job in November to be able to have some, clear mind to be able to enjoy the Christmas within this pandemic and all the chaos we find ourselves in right now. So yeah, thank God for that.
Okay, okay. Also, that target also put a kind of a pressure on you, right?
Definitely.
When you realized, okay, it's end of November, and there is still nothing on the table. Um, but anyways, we'll talk about that. Quite interesting. So looking at it, right? Generally, looking for a job in the pandemic, right? So how did that go for you? I'm really interested to know how you stayed motivated all through the period, because I'm sure there were times where you were like, wow, nothing's happening, all the rejections flowing in, and still nothing. So how did you stay motivated? How did you tweak one or two things, change one or two things? What did you do from your perspective that you think helped the overall process?
That's an interesting question. To be honest, I mean, I would say it wasn't anything related to, the actual job application itself, because, I mean, that was something I was already into.
Mm,
When I knew I had to do it regardless, and I believe everybody is doing it as well, because, I mean, as a graduate, one of the next goal is that you're trying to find a job, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, what motivated me wasn't really about, getting a job. I mean, definitely it was about getting a job, but then within the pandemic, I mean, as an international student, right? As I said, I was sitting in my, I would say, 16 quadrat-meter apartment with the bed and my writing desk at the same place. So I got up from bed, I sat on my table and I started working, go back. I mean, it was lockdown. You had nowhere to go, right? So
Yeah.
I would say what actually kept me going, because at that time I started talking more with my mom, in the sense that I mean, this is just by the way. I mean, it might not be important, but I grew up with only my mom, a single parent. So
Mm,
we have this strong connection between us. So, I mean, at that point, and I mean, she sacrificed a lot for me to get here. So at this point, she was also, praying as every mother would do, right? That the son will get a job. So, I mean, mostly we spoke almost every day in the morning, like, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? What is it going? How is it going? How is the job search going? I was like, yes, it's okay. Even when it wasn't going okay, because I didn't want to, give her this impression that I was, going through some tough time. I wanted her to be happy. So that particular thing was my motivation as well, because I wanted to get a job. I know it might sound cheesy, but then my motivation was getting a job and actually telling my mom that I've gotten a job. So I remember there are some days that I woke up in the morning that I didn't feel like very motivated to do anything. I was lying in bed, but then this thing came into my mind, and as soon as I speak to her, I just get back on my computer, to start doing something. I believe that was what actually kept me sane during the whole period. The goal that I wanted to, find something by December, as I mentioned earlier, and also be able to inform my mom that, hey, I'm done with school and I found a job. So I know it's not very traditional, but then yeah, really that was what actually kept me motivated throughout the whole process.
Wow, I really like this, right? I've never thought about it this way. And I think it's really important because I know also from my experience, you can really lose motivation when you're applying for jobs. And really, this is really good tip. So finding something, right? So it's more like taking little steps. And even when you were not motivated, you thought of, okay, wait, I really want to tell my mom that I found a job, right? And that kept you going. So it's like, okay, I need to get back into the game because I want to tell my mom at some point, your target was December, that I found a job. And it's really nice. And I think it's quite interesting to see these different aspects, right? I also like what you talked about of calling your mom or staying in touch with her. So it also boils down to that, let's say, you can find someone also within your network, your friends that you talk to, that you can freely open to sometimes. And I think in general that really helps a lot. So really nice tips. Thanks for that.
And to just a little add up. This to what you said, which is really, really important, right? Because in the process that when you are in the process of maybe applying for a job search, right, it may be realistically in a day you apply for 10 jobs or maybe even 15 jobs, and then you wake up in the morning and you get rejected from 10 of them. You get discouraged sometimes, right? So I took it like the little wins, that came to me easily. Like maybe I played a game and I won against a friend of mine. I took some sort of joy in that because of, even if I'm losing on this front, I'm sort of, able to win, maybe playing a game with somebody or maybe having a meaningful discussion with someone, taking some joy from that. So, really, to anybody out there, I know the process of, it might feel like you are isolated and you are alone. And I believe there are a lot of people out there going through the same situation that you are going through. I went through it myself, and I believe you then went through the same thing as well. So I believe through it all, just have some sort of, I would say some anchor, something that you can really draw on to actually keep you going and keep you motivated throughout the process. Because if you only concentrate on the job application itself, sometimes it can really get into your psyche, and I believe sometimes that is when the demotivation starts creeping in, I guess.
Yeah, super nice. Yeah, thanks for that. The next question I want to ask you now, I'll go a bit deeper into the interview process.
Yeah.
So because you mentioned that, okay, yeah, you were already, I would say, in the flow, right, on what to do, what not to do. What would you say is something that was peculiar for helping you, for example, get that job at Hugo Boss?
Okay, so then we will have to. That's a good question. Then we have to go back a little. Backtrack a little bit. Because a few months prior to starting my application, right? Maybe 2 months into the application journey, I was spraying my CV everywhere. Because the reason was that I came out from an internship where everybody in the team told me that, hey George, you are very good. And because of maybe Corona and due to some internal problems, we don't have a full-time job for you, right? So we believe that you are good enough and you can get a job with any interest in any of your interests. So I came out, maybe I had some project management experience, and I think this is a mistake that we all do. Some project management experience, some maybe brand strategy experience. I even thought I could do product management because I had some basic experience about it. I did some data. I also had some experience about it. So I was just spraying my CV everywhere. And 2 months into it, I realized that this is not going to work, right? Because I kept getting rejections upon rejections upon rejections. So I decided that, hey, this is time for me to restructure the whole, strategy in how I'm looking for the job. So I segmented, I created like some sort of categorization, right? I had two categories, A and B. Category A were the companies I really wanted to work for, right? And the category B were the companies that I knew that, okay, I could work for if I don't get a job in the category A. And my passions were I wanted to work in fashion related, e-commerce, and in the digital team, right? Digital marketing, digital strategy. That was what the category, the jobs I wanted for, the jobs I was looking for in category A. And the category where, as I said, were the other companies I think I could, join to do something for the meantime, whilst I look maybe 2 years, 1 year, and then go back to the category A companies. So in the category, I had two companies. It was Adidas and then Hugo Boss. So then I realized, okay, I realized that a lot of people actually talk about networking with people. And I mean, sometimes we also don't look at the other side. How about if you are an introvert and you can actually know how to actually network with people, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I found myself in that particular category because I don't know how to do that. So I realized, okay, then I have two companies. Two companies I can actually reach out to people online, try to speak to some people. I did, and then one guy that I spoke to, Hugo Boss, told me that in their company, the HRs, the recruiters go through every particular CV that comes. Okay, that is very good to know, right? So
Yeah.
then I started. I knew that. So every morning, right, when I woke up, the first place that I started my job search was to go to the website of Adidas and Hugo Boss to see if there are any new openings. Sometimes they weren't, sometimes they were, and if they were, and I saw that they matched my background, I applied to it. So fast forward now into the interview process, the question that you asked. So I believe what actually helped me to get the job, right? This is how I approached the whole interview. When I was invited to an interview, so as I said, and also during the interview process, and I believe this is something that lots of people don't do, is to keep track of the application that is sent out there. Because I started keeping an Excel sheet with every application. So maybe the first column was the date of the application, the company, and the link to the application itself, right? And I was always using the link from LinkedIn because even on LinkedIn, when the job is expired, they still keep a copy of the job description in their database. But then with the other platforms like Stepstone or Indeed, they just delete it from the database, right? So I always kept the link from LinkedIn. So as soon as I get invited to an interview, I went to the job description first, right? To read the actual job description to understand what they are actually looking for. Because I believe the job description is more or less like a cheat sheet, for you going to the interview. It actually tells you what they are looking for. So it's either you have some experience pertaining to the job description or not. So I read the job description and I realized, okay, I did have the experience, so I prepared my thoughts, some answers based on certain points that they mentioned. So the first round interview was quite okay. It was with the recruiter and then the hiring manager and another senior manager within the team, and it was about 45 minutes. We basically talked about behavioral questions, tell me about yourself and all these stuff.
Okay.
So that actually quite went well. They asked me a few technical questions pertaining to the job as well. But then at the end of the interview, which I believe as candidate, that is where we have some control over the interview when you are being opportunity to ask questions, right?
Ask questions.
So yeah. So I actually went in prepared with not like went in, but I really wanted to understand the job itself. So my first question to them was, what challenges are you facing currently? And why are you actually hiring for this role? Right. And so then they told me that, okay, currently the market, since the pandemic, starting from January, they've currently scaled their e-commerce operations to over 25 countries, right? So that means that the market expansion is growing at a more faster rate than the team. So they need some pieces, to support the team and able to handle the workload that is coming onto the team. Okay, that's cool. So then I went on to, actually ask about the job, to know the actual problems they are facing, to know the team and, the day to day of the, if I'm being given the role. So that was that. So 1 week later, I was invited to the second. So it was a 2-round interview, the first and the second.
Okay.
So the second round interview, when I was invited to the interview, so I realized, okay, if you think about it, in the first round they invite 20 candidates they speak to around 20 candidates, right? Which is I think
that's a lot.
which is even too much, really. Maybe
it's too much. Yeah. But yeah.
Just let's keep the number higher. Because maybe they take maybe 20, right? Right. Realistically 10. So this is for the first round. I mean, the final round, you're competing against probably three other people. So maybe you are four, or you are three, or sometimes you're even two going to the final interview. But then you realize that in the final round, that is where the competition is highest, right? Because at this point, they believe that you both can do the job. So it's more about, how can you stand out from this other person. So I was like, okay, so what can I do? So then I had an idea, one of those points in your life. Actually, I was in the shower when I got the idea
I love those shower ideas.
No, I mean, yeah. So my idea was to actually use the experience and the challenge that they mentioned in the first round interview and build a project to actually present to them in the second round, in the final interview. So based on that, I actually went and researched, the market that they've actually expanded to. I realized that it was around 25, and then I segmented these markets based on geographical locations, in the sense of maybe talking about content, right? Maybe a content that would be applicable in APAC would not be applicable in, let me say, EMEA or maybe even North America, right? So I segmented these various markets into these various categories, and also the languages of the website itself. And then I took one of those markets, and then I built a sample campaign that could be run in this market. And then at the end of the presentation, I added a 30, 60, 90-day plan, whereby I laid out what I would do in the first 90 days if I'm being given the job. And this entailed, the first 80 days, being like a sponge, learning from the team members, getting to know each of the team members, personally, on a personally and a professional level. And also in the 60 days, that is when maybe I'll start performing my tasks with some supervision. And maybe from the 90-day mark, that is when I think I can be more, independent in my responsibilities, right? So I presented that to them, and lucky enough, I did. And prior to the interview, I sent an email to the recruiter that, hey, can you actually tell me the structure of the final interview? Which I believe people don't ask about, and I think we as candidates have the right to know if you are not being told, right? So they told me that, okay, yeah, it's just going to be a recap of the first round interview, and then we are going to discuss. I did a behavioral assessment test, and then we are going to discuss the results of the behavioral assessment test. So I was like, okay, cool, that's nice. So I then told them, okay, I prepared a presentation, and I would like to. They were like, okay, no, why not? I mean, it's okay. So during the when I went for the interview, the second round, so that was the lucky part, because the first question they asked me was, what did you learn from your first round interview, right? So me going through the process of actually thinking and preparing this presentation actually made me think a lot about the previous interview, right? So I told them, okay, I did this, and this is what I did. And based on that, I prepared this presentation. I'd be more than happy to share with you. Well, okay, cool.
Oh, I love this.
So I started, I showed them, I opened the slide deck and I showed them to it. And trust me, bro, this was all my skills I had in preparing a PowerPoint presentation.
you put in everything, right?
Every single animation trick that I know, every single thing that I know, right? So I showed the presentation, and it took almost not too long, about 10 minutes. And after that, the senior manager said that, did you prepare these slides yourself? And I was like, yes, I did. I was like, that's interesting. So that sort of made the whole conversation, a little bit relaxed from that point on, because it made it more conversational than, they asking me questions and me giving answers to those questions. So then we went into, we talked about the behavioral assessment. That was So after that, they told me that, okay, cool. We will get back to you probably in 2 weeks. And I was like, 2 weeks? That is a long time. That's a long time. They were like, yeah, we understand. And I was like, okay. I take it in good faith. So, okay, thank you very much. And then we hung up the call. And then what I did post the interview, which I think is also very important, is I didn't send just a generic email that, hey, thank you, blah, blah, blah. I actually wrote an email, which I don't think they were happy reading, but then it was a long email. like explain, detailing exactly what I learned from the interview, what I took from it, and how I think my skills can actually support them in mitigating maybe challenge ABC, right? So I sent this email to them, and he replied maybe a week later. So that, oh, thank you. We are still, going to discuss about the whole recruiting process and get back to you soon. So, yeah, 2 days later, I got the call that I got the job. So, yeah, to answer your question, I know I've spoken too much, but then I believe me being proactive in thinking about, the whole process was what actually got me this job.
Wow. Um, I'm really speechless right now because I think we can just stop the interview here, and anyone listening to this has gained, I don't know how many months of experience on how to go ahead when planning for an interview. This is gold right here, what you just told me, and it's really great stuff. So let me just reiterate, right? So I like the first thing you did when you asked them what challenge you're facing, because there's one thing that people forget a lot of times. Like, nobody really cares about your skills. Nobody cares about you. A lot of times, the company has a pain point, which is why they're looking for someone to hire. And that was exactly what you did. You asked them, what are your challenges, right? What is your main problem? Why are you hiring for this role? Because you wanted to understand what value you can bring, which was excellent. And wow, it's really great stuff. And I learned a lot already from this. So even using the clue from what they gave you about the challenges they had, and you built the project on that, give them really, okay, what you need to do, what the problems are, doing the first 90 days analysis, great stuff. And anyone listening to this is how to stand out. Because I'm sure not everybody, maybe one or two people did exactly what you did. And you would know that you're successful when an interview starts going to a conversational level, which is what you had. George, I think this is really impressive. And thanks for sharing this. And I hope that people listening to this can gain a lot of stuff out of here. One last point I really liked was when you asked for the structure of the interview. So this is really nice as well, because knowing the structure of the interview will help you prepare better.
Yeah.
So there is no point to guess what the structure of the interview will be like, but to if you're not sure, to ask. And then finally the follow-up email explaining what you learned from the interview, and also reiterating your presentation. This is what you'll do, ABC. If you're given the chance, man, well done. Well done. I think, yeah, well deserved. And thanks for sharing this. As I said, we can stop the interview here. And I think anybody listening to this would have gotten lots of ideas, right? How to prepare very well for an interview. It's similar to something I read about value validation project. So you normally apply this to, I think Austin mentioned that, you normally apply this to when you're changing careers. So let's say you're coming from finance and you want to go to supply chain, but you don't have any idea, or you don't know how to pivot your experience in supply chain because you're coming from finance. What you just did here is the best way to do it, right? So you work on a project, you tell them this is what you can do, this is what you've done, you combine both sides. Excellent. To be frank, I have no any other question to ask you because I feel that this is the pinnacle of everything. Really happy when you mentioned those points, because they showed how thoughtful you were in the process, and no wonder you got the job. But yeah, let me just ask one final question then. So there are a lot of people going through something similar as you went through, and so we can just use this to close the interview. So what would you tell someone who's finding it difficult these days, right? From a motivation to how to prepare for an interview, or how to even search. If I go back a bit, I liked how you categorized your companies with A and B's companies in the strategy set. I did a podcast on motivation, and I said something similar to this, because there's always that A company that you want to work for, and there's always those ones that you're okay working for, but if you have the chance to work for something else, you would go for something else.
Exactly.
So I think that was also a very good strategy in general, and I really loved it. Just to wrap up, people out there, what insights can you give right from, let's say, the job search process to the very end that you think could be beneficial to them?
Okay, so yeah, So looking back, 6 months ago, I would say if you've asked me this question, right, I would have said, don't be like George, right? In a sense that, no, really,
Like
really,
the way you
really,
started in the beginning, right? Of randomly just sending applications.
no, really, yeah. Don't be like George. And it's not just about randomness and only that, but then actually, reaching out to people. And I don't know, there maybe Dan, you might, it's not just to stereotype, right? But then I'm from Ghana, and I'm an African. And
Yeah.
there is, I was brought up to be not to show vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
have this tough, outside the people see you and be like, oh, he's good, everything is fine. In the sense that I didn't want to tell anybody what I was going through, which was a big mistake. So really, don't be like
Mm.
George. I believe there are amazing people out there who dedicate their time to, support you however, not even they can't get you a job, I would say, right? But then the little they can do is to actually share their experience with you and actually make you aware that what you are going through, you are not alone. And I
Yeah.
believe, Dan, you are one of those people. As I spoke to Kofi, he told me that, hey, definitely you were amazing when Kofi is a friend of mine who is familiar with Dan as well. Yeah, so, and one guy, which I don't know if he will ever hear this, he's called Demos. He's also,
Okay.
he works for Adidas. And I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, this guy was super, super amazing. Despite the amount of workload that he has, right? He always had time. Anytime I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and I didn't know him from anywhere, right? He
Yeah.
always had time to tell me, hey, you can do this, do it this way, or think about it this way. He always told me, and one thing he always told me going into the interview, and I think this is something that is important to share. Don't pick a job, but then pick a boss. Because I
Mm.
mean, we all, I believe, as international students per se, right? We all complete school and we really want a job. But then there are some people that you work for that you regret even taking the job in the first place, right? So he
Yeah.
always told me that going into the interview, George, don't try to be anybody else. Be yourself and actually try to understand the team itself. So sometimes, I mean, as a recruiter or as a hiring manager, if they want you, they are trying to sell the company to you, the benefits they are going to give you and all that. But then look past the fairy tale, and look back, look behind the curtain and see that is this team, the culture within the team. So you could even ask, how are the dynamics within the team, right? What is the feedback culture within the team? What the hiring manager, what is your management style? Just to understand what the team is and try to align those with your principles. That is this person is this person somebody I would like to work with on a day-to-day basis? And if yes, that I believe that actually also increases your sort of intrinsic motivation and also sort of pushes you to go the extra mile to actually get the job. So yeah, don't be
Yeah.
like George. There are lots of people out there who will be more than happy to help you. Reach out to people, talk to people, seek advice, and I believe that through it all, definitely. I listened prior to this podcast. I listened to your previous podcast, and you said something which really stuck with me. Everything falls into place, I believe. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong. Like
Yeah.
eventually,
Yeah.
everything will fall into place. So I know it's challenging the point that you are going through, but then I believe it all. When it comes to the job search process, I a lot of people talk about online application, networking, and people actually also say that networking is a better approach into getting a job than on application. Yes, I knew that, but then as I said, I'm an introvert, so it was difficult for me to do that. So I sort of blended the two, right? So I sent
Mm.
out an application online, and then maybe I went onto LinkedIn, looked at some people who work on the team, and then sent them an email. Hey, I'm George. I just sent out this application, and if you have some time, introduce myself to that. I would like to talk to you to get to know more about the team and express how I could be helpful to the team. And I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say I had a lot of replies. Some definitely replied as well. Told me that, oh yes, I mean, they can't do anything at this point because it's like within the company rules. But then they know that if I'm the right person for the job, I'm definitely gonna get the job, right? So I blended, both online and networking as well, which I believe is very helpful. That means you are doing both. And going back to exactly the point that you said, if you actually think about. I believe that is the first step to the whole job application. It's actually sitting down, reflecting what you actually want to do, right? Do you actually want to work? Because I mean, I was working for Merck, and it was one of the most amazing companies in Germany. But then I realized that, I mean, pharma is not a place that I wanted to be. And that is not
Mm.
where I think on the long run I like to work. So I wasn't, when I was even working for the company as well. And this is, I mean, this is also another point I would say, that don't be like George, in the sense that when you get an internship opportunity within a company, none of those people there would directly think that, oh, this person needs a job after the internship. You have to make your plans known to your manager, the people who are around your team, anybody you have a touch point with. You know, hey, I'm an intern here, and maybe I'm done in the next 4 months, and when I'm done, I would really like to join the team. You make them know your intentions, and when any opportunity comes, I believe they will recommend you for it. So continue in that particular line, ask for help, do as much as you can. And then jumping back to the final step of the hiring process, which is the interview part, as we discussed earlier on, being more proactive and thinking about, looking at the job description. Think about the job description. Do you meet all the points they are talking about? It doesn't mean you should meet it 100%, right? I believe 80% is more than enough, right? So if you think you meet the criteria, and then maybe they ask you that extensive experience with Excel, you don't have that experience. I mean, you can actually learn that prior to the interview to sort of maybe build a project, go on YouTube, research about how to build a dashboard, how to use pivot tables, and so get an idea, because that nobody can actually determine what your experience is, right? It's more
Yeah.
about you being able to convey that, okay, I haven't used Excel before personally, professionally, but then prior to this interview, I actually built this project, and now I'm familiar with maybe VLOOKUPs, or I'm familiar with building dashboards and all that, and I'm comfortable with pivot tables. So I believe, in as much as I haven't worked with them professionally, I believe given the opportunity, I'll be able to perform with this, and that is an experience, if I may say. So it's not always so. As I said, the job description is your holy grail when it comes to the interview, because that gives you everything you need. Outside your experience and your be whatever whoever your personality you are, to be able to help you actually in the interview. And going for the interview, one tool that I found very, very helpful was Glassdoor, because
Mm.
Glassdoor, and I don't know why people weren't, buzzing about it, because I mean, it was really, really helpful. Because I mean, an example, you are being given done works for BSF, right? If I go to
Yeah.
Glassdoor and I input BSF, it's able to give me the hiring process, right? How other people went through, what sample questions that they were asked, and based on that, so what I did was I actually took out all these questions, right? And I actually sort of matched them to see that are these which of the questions were, asked the most, right? And I knew that, okay, maybe, and obviously tell me about yourself, your motivation. But I realized that there is always one sort of question that keeps running in, right? Why do you want to work for BSF? And you
Yeah.
thinking about that prior to the interview makes you, more prepared for the interview than actually, just going and tell why do you want to work for the company, and you just tell them that, hey, the product that you have is good, and the company is doing well. I look at the financial sheets, and the company is performing well, and the next 5 years they are going to do well. I believe that wouldn't actually get you the job, right? It's
Nope.
actually
Nope.
understanding what they are going through, and if you can, right, and if you see there maybe there's some loophole in whatever they are doing, right, and you want to share with them, you can share with them, because I mean, people working in the company sometimes, I mean, there is a popular Ghanaian saying, I don't know how to directly translate it, that says that the person who is, creating a road or whatever does not know if it is crooked behind him. I don't know if you are trying to understand that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, sometimes people, they sometimes don't see the mistake, but then you can actually sometimes pinpoint some. Like, hey, I saw this, and maybe I think maybe we could even do it like this, right? And you actually segmenting yourself this way, I believe, will actually help you in getting the job. So yeah, really. So as I said, any last thought I said, don't, from how I started explaining what I was doing, don't be like George, But then on the latter part, when I started actually being serious, then you can be like George. So yeah.
Definitely. Wow. I'm just going to end the interview now, but that was something you mentioned. I want to iterate before we close. Keeping track of your applications. So that is also very important. I like how you kept track of your application, the date when you apply to the company, the link to the job. And I wanted to add something. Make sure you also copy paste the job description somewhere. So in case it's not found anymore on LinkedIn, you have that on your desktop, on your laptop, that you have as a reference to add to what you just said. I think this is really important so that when you want to have a reference, you can just go back to it easily in case it's no more there. And that helps you to add to everything George just said to make sure that at least you are well prepared for the interview. So seriously, right? I don't know how many times I've said this. I think this interview was gold or is gold. And I hope that people can get a lot of insights from this if they listen to this, because it will really help change the mindset of how we apply for jobs and how we prepare for interviews and the overall process. So thanks a lot, George. I'm really happy that I reached out to you. And I'm also really happy that you finally got that job and that yes. And wish you all the best right in January. So enjoy the time till January, as I mentioned, because once you start, it's going to be a different story, right? You won't have the time anymore that much. So enjoy your 2 weeks, and thanks again. I don't know, I cannot thank you much for really accepting to come up on the show. Very much appreciated, George.
More than happy to help, Dan. As I said, I mean, you are doing the Lord's work because, I mean, there's not a lot of people taking up their time, to do this. And this is really amazing what you are doing. And I actually recently saw you post this call for mentorship, for students who are currently, in the situation that we went through, to help them to actually transition from the school. And I mean, if I had an opportunity, and this, I mean, I'm saying this to anybody out there, really, this is like a very great opportunity because if I had this opportunity, right, I believe I would have been more guided in the way I did things, right? Because then you are learning from somebody who has actually gone through the process and actually, hey, you can do it this way or you can do it that way. So I think that is also an amazing initiative that you put out there. And really, as I said, you are doing the God. And all the best in what you are doing as well, really.
Thanks, George. Thanks for the feedback.
Ciao.
Thank you once again for listening to today's episode. If you got any value from this podcast, please hit the subscribe button to stay updated when new episodes are published. Oh, and remember, sharing is caring. Share the podcast with a friend to make sure he or she is not missing out. And as always, you can find all the tools and the templates you need on blisscareer.de. Until then, I wish you a wonderful time ahead. Bye-bye and stay safe.